Hey friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be making the Wrapped in Love dress, and I'm excited about this dress. It is super cute. I love the little wrap detail on the skirt. I love the fact that I'm not going to be doing a neck band because it's totally, the bodice is lined, so I love that. So I'm super excited. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, but before I do, let me remind you of our Fun Fan giveaway of $50 Ellie and Matt gift certificate. And all you have to do is subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and comment below, and you are entered for our giveaway. How exciting is that? Because everybody wants to have some more Ellie and Matt cash so you can buy all these awesome patterns and sew them with me. So that's really exciting. So once again, this is the Wrapped in Love, and I already cut out all my pieces. Let's do it. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our back, which was cut on the fold. And I know people ask, why do we cut it on the fold? Cutting it on the fold gives it a better shape, especially on your back, kind of more a tapered look. It gives it a good, it just makes it look better in the back. And I've found too that it just gives it, it's just easy, it just looks better. And so it shapes you better in the back. So that's don't skip that step. If you want to skip that step, then I mean, it is up to you, but I think it does make a difference on the overall look of the garment. So we're gonna go ahead and sew that back seam right sides together. I'm using my serger, but if you don't have a serger, you can use your sewing machine. You just have to make sure you use a stretch stitch that fits this the kind of knit that you're using, and that will be just fine. We're gonna go ahead and open it, and I'm going to steam it to one side. We're going to do this step to the back outer and the back liner. I already did it to my liner and put it to the side. Now we're gonna grab our back and we're gonna put it face up on my board, and we're gonna grab our front and we're gonna put it face down on it, and we're going to pin at the shoulders. Pin at the shoulders, and we're gonna sew the shoulders together. Again, this part you're also going to be doing to your liner, to your outer and your liner. I already did this steps to my outer or liner. I'm using the same fabric for outer and liner. Every once in a while, I'll change my fabric. I like to buy a double brush poly that kind of fits my skin tone, and sometimes I use that as a liner. If I find it on sale, I'll stock up on it. There's that tone right there. I like that one with my skin tone. It's kind of mocha, I think it's the color of it. So I like to find different colors that will go with my skin tone, and sometimes I use them as liners, but sometimes if I have enough of the fabric, I'll just use the same fabric. So this time I went ahead and used the same fabric. So now we're gonna go ahead and open it. Look at this nice neckline. I'm excited about this neckline too. And now I'm gonna grab my liner or outer. I gotta make sure and see which one I like better to look as a liner on an outer once I finish it. We're gonna grab put in right sides together, outer and liner, matching at all those seams. So I'm gonna match that back seam, right sides together, match the back seam. I'm gonna match those shoulder seams. And you don't need to pull, you don't need to tug, you don't need to do any of that. You're just putting it right on there. You're just basically putting them together. They should fit nicely. They're the same pattern. You did the same exact thing. So if you cut it a little bit bigger than the other one, I've done that sometimes. Just kind of even it out. Okay, so now that they're pinned together, I'm gonna go around the neck. A lot of people like to do this step on a sewing machine because it gives you a better, like a more even look maybe. But I do it on my serger and I haven't had any issues with it. So I'm gonna sew all the way around that neck, right sides together on those raw edges. So I went around my whole neck, and I want to make sure, look at my seams and make sure I cut it right everywhere. So when I turn it and I'm going to wear it, I don't end up with a hole in my neck, because it would not be good. All right, so now we're going to open it up and tuck it through the neck, so that way you have your bodice, front and back. And now I need to figure out if I want this to be my front, my outer, or if I want this to be my outer. And I'm thinking I like the placement of the flowers better on the other side. I don't know, I kind of like this one too. See, I like that, but it's a lot going on in the front. And then this one, it's got like a little bit less going on. I think I'm gonna do this one to be my front. The reason why I need to figure this out now is because we're gonna attach your sleeves. So this bodice is not 100%, it's not like a burrito method where it's all, the seams are all inside. The seams are not inside on this one. We're gonna put the sleeve right on top of here. So I wanted to make sure I found out exactly which one I want to be the front, because I'm not gonna be able to turn it around once I put the sleeves on. So that's why I wanted to do it now. We're gonna grab our sleeve. We're gonna go from the front to the top half right here. And I'm gonna just mark it with a little notch of the fabric. As you can see, it's like been just a tiny little clip. And I'm gonna place that right on top of that shoulder seam. Looking for my pins. They always try to get away from me. Okay, and I'm going all the way down that raw edge of my shirt, right sides together. So you're attaching this to both the outer and the liner, but the right side of my sleeve is touching the right side of my outer. So it's touching the outer. So the outer line is face up. Face up. I have been this like whole week has been like dreary and rainy and cold. I'm gonna do the same thing to my other sleeve while we're at it. And so today I am wearing a fall in love sweater, my coziest fall in love sweater. This fabric is lined, it's like the inside of this fabric is minky fabric. So it is super cozy, super soft, and I love the fit of the fall in love. It's kind of like a looser fit, you know? So I love wearing it, and so I've been super cozy today, but I am excited to make this dress, and I am hoping to wear it tonight because I'm going out with my husband. So I was like, oh, perfect, have a new dress to go out in. So I'm excited. But like, you know, there's times where you want to like dress up, and then there's times where you just want to look cute and comfy. And that's the good thing about Ellie and Mac. There's patterns for when you want to fancy it on up, or when you want to still look cute but not as dressy. And I love this. This is so sweet, and I love it. And honestly, I get so many compliments when I wear this sweater. Yes. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sew around that shoulder seam right there all the way around to sew in the sleeves. After we sew those, we want to make sure that we look and that we cut all the seams. You know, when I sew on camera, I always make sure, and then sometimes when I'm sewing by myself, I just kind of do it really quick and don't really check. And there's been a few times where that has come back to bite me on the butt because I didn't catch all the seams, and I'm like, why didn't I not check? So always check your seams. So now we're gonna meet right sides together at the armpit seam and the side seams all the way down the side. You're matching those 4 layers of fabric. You've got your liner and outer, front and back, and then we're gonna go down the sleeve. And we're putting that bodice together to get ready to work on, get done with our bodice, and then move on to our skirt. So I'm doing the same to the other side. And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew those raw edges together. We'll figure out how easy it is going to be to make this beautiful, beautiful dress. It's not very hard. I think that sometimes I've said this before, but I always think that sometimes we're so intimidated by the way that something looks. And you're like, oh, I could never make that. And then you jump in and you do it and you realize, yes, you can make it. And it's going to turn out beautiful. You know what we forgot to do? We forgot to steam the neckline. Probably should do that. It gives it a nice, straight, even neckband. Make sure you steam it nicely. You should always be steaming it every step of the way. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sew those side seams. Troop. And encase the bodice. Close up the bodice. Make sure that when you're encasing, you go through the bodice. Make sure you're catching all 4 layers. You don't want to turn it around and have a piece of it not be caught in there. And when you turn it around, it not look sharp. So there is our bodice. So beautiful. Ooh, this is gonna be so pretty. I can already tell. All right, the next step, first step, that was not the first step. The next step, we're gonna use some clear elastic. Clear elastic is an awesome tool for when we're making a dress like this, because our skirt, we're gonna make a longer skirt, wrap skirt, and the skirt is kind of heavy. So you don't want the heaviness of the skirt to pull your bodice down as you're wearing it. And then by the end of the day, your bodice, your top is like stretched all the way down, your waistband is all the way down at the bottom, and you're like, why do I look like I just went through rain and, you know, I'm melting? Well, this clear elastic will help with that, because it gives it stability at the waist. So when the skirt tries to pull, it kind of stabilizes it so it doesn't pull as bad. It really bothers me when my iron is showing. It's got that spot right there. I have some iron cleaner. I just need to get to it and clean it. So the way that we do clear elastic, sorry about that side note. And if you didn't notice that, now you did. We're going to measure the width of our bodice. Clear elastic does not need to be stretched out. It's just going to be sewn on. And honestly, you can either measure the width of your bodice and cut it, or the way that some people put it on, they will just go, don't cut it yet. They'll start sewing it on, and then they'll cut it when they get to the other end. Okay, so this is how wide it is. I'm just gonna cut it right here. Come on, I don't want to cut you twice. There we go. It's like stuck to my finger. And then we're going to go right here, right along the edge of our bodice on the inside. We're going to pin it. I'll start pinning it in the back. And honestly, you don't even have to pin it. If you want to pin it, you can. We'll just do that first pin so it doesn't come off when I'm trying to sew it on. And we're going to sew it right to the edge of our bodice. So here, right here, right to the edge. You can't really see it. It's right there, the clear elastic. You can either, I'm going to go ahead and zigzag it. If you wanted to serge the edge, serge it on just by the edge. But the only thing I don't like about that is the fact that then you'll have a bulkier seam. So I'm just using, sorry, I clipped it the wrong way. I pinned it going the other way. I wanted to go this way because that way I can put it on my sewing machine facing this way. So what I'm doing is I am doing a zigzag stitch. I'm attaching it with a zigzag stitch, and I'm going all the way around along that edge, attaching that clear elastic with a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine. And I'm gonna adjust my zigzag stitch, and I'm gonna make it like a 3. So it's not a super tight zigzag stitch, because I do not like that. And remember, you're not stretching the elastic. You're just letting it go on. So let me do that, and I'll show you once I'm done. All right. I'm going to show you. See, it's zigzag along the edge of my top, and I made it in a way that you can't use a thread that you can't really see. And then when we sew the skirt on, you'll be so close to it, you won't even be able to really see it. And also, we'll put the strap on and the slash on, and it will be good. So our bodice is done. This is my bodice. So we're gonna work on our skirt. All right, so I'm gonna grab my skirt, and this is my skirt back, but I need to grab my skirt front, my two fronts. Okay, here they are. And I'm going to grab them, and on the outside, the inside seam, this is my outer seam. As you can tell, it kind of does a little loopy out, not loopy, but like it kind of goes out a little bit at the hip. And if you can't tell which one it is, this one's straight. Use your pattern piece to tell which one is the inside and which one's the outside. So on the inside, the part that's gonna wrap up, I'm going to go ahead and hem that slit. So that way it looks nice and even right here. And we're gonna hem it at a 1/2 inch hem allowance. Because I mean, if you wanted to leave it raw, I guess you could leave it raw. But you want it to look nice, and so doing it hemming it right there will make it look really nice at the edge. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and steam and hem my skirt like the front. See how it like wraps over this, the front where the slit is gonna open. That's the part that I'm hemming, and I'm gonna do it for both my two fronts, because I got, I had cut on the not on the fold. I cut two mirrored images, so I'm gonna do it on both sides. So let me go ahead and hem at a 1/2 inch. I'm gonna use my cover stitch. If you don't have a cover stitch, honestly, because this is a slit that goes from the top to the bottom, you can just use a straight stitch on your sewing machine. That's what I would do. Or if you're worried about it, a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine will be fine. But since it's not a hem that stretches out, it's a hem that's going up and down, a straight stitch on your sewing machine, in my opinion, should work. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back to put our skirts fronts together. So now that my skirt is all hemmed on the inside, we're gonna grab our back. We could use our pattern piece for this, or just our back bodice, our back skirt. I have it out already, so I'm just gonna use my back skirt. We're gonna place our pieces with your front pieces right on top of it. It doesn't matter if it's right side up or wrong side up, because I'm just calculating how much I'm going to overlap my two pieces. So the hem that you just created goes towards the inside, and right here at that side edge. And now we see right here how much we are overlapping for our skirt. So I'm going to pin my overlap. Don't grab that back piece, just the two fronts. You're just pinning their overlap according to the width of the back of the skirt. Okay, so now that my overlap is pinned, put down that back skirt. See, my overlap is pinned. I'm gonna go ahead and just do a basting stitch. Just do a basting stitch, which is a long stitch that you can later pull out after you put your skirts together. So I'm just doing a basting stitch so that when I go to put my skirts together, if they move, it won't mess me up. You know how sometimes you're sewing something together and it moves and you totally lose your spot? You're like, no. Yes. So a basting stitch helps keep that from happening. Okay, so as you can see, it's just a long straight stitch to keep that together. So now we've got a whole front, and here's my front, and we've got the back. okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to first kind of secure the opening a little bit. So let's put this one back. So what they give you on the pattern is 12 inches. So what we're going to do, that's just what the pattern kind of says. So it really is up to you how much you want to sew on it. If you want the slit to be higher, if you want the slit to be lower, if you want it not to open at all, you want it to go all the way down to your knee, or if you want it to be like really short, just barely closed, this is up to you. So the pattern gives you 12 inches. So you mark from the edge to the 12 inches right there is what the pattern calls for. So we're going to pin right there at the 12 inches. I'm just overlapping the skirt, pinning at the 12 inches. Oh my goodness, the flower is pretty much like finished right here where it looks like it's meant to be right there. And there's a line right here, but it doesn't look that way. That's pretty cool. So anyway, our pattern shows 12 inches, but once you try it on, if you think you can baste it together first and then try it on and say, hey, I want it the slit higher. I mean, the opening to start higher up, or hey, I want it to be more closed up. So then you can figure out on like later on if you want it higher or lower, it's up to you. So what we're going to do is right over one of those, your hem stitch, you're going to go right over it with a stitch on your sewing machine, making sure that the fabrics are aligned correctly. Don't let them get all wrinkled or wiggly. You might want to pin a couple times more than I did. I didn't really pin very well. So I want to make sure that it's straight because I don't want it to be wonky when I go to wear it and it's kind of like, like, meh. So I want to make sure that my skirt is nice and even when I sew it on. So take your time with this step and make sure it's nice and even. Maybe, I don't usually pin very much, but maybe it's a good idea to use more than your usual 1 or 2 pins so that you get it nice and straight and even right here at the front. It is going to gather a tiny bit. So even if it wasn't super even, don't get mad at yourself. It'll be fine. Okay, so I'm going to go with that straight stitch and sew that right down that seam. All right. So now that is sewn, our skirt won't open all the way up once we put it on, because you don't want it to go flying wide open when you put it on. It's just it's got a little bit before the slit. Okay, so now what we can do is if we want to do pockets, this is where we place our pockets. We're going to put, we are going to put, here's our side seam. And we're going to do it on all 4 seams. If you are going to do 4 pockets, we're going to put it on all 4 seams. But if you only want to do all 4 pockets, both pockets, you put 4 because it's front and back. But if you're putting just one pocket, you make sure you put it on the same side. And we're doing 4 inches from the top. I don't know what I did with my measuring tape. I guess I put it right back. I never usually do that. Just proud of myself. So we're going to go 4 inches from the top. And we're going to put it right here. I'm going 4 inches from the top. And we're going to flush it with that edge, right sides together, making sure the pocket is facing the bottom. So here's my bottom. My teardrop is going towards the bottom, okay? And we're going to sew that right sides together right there at the raw edge. So we're going to sew that raw edge where the pocket is. And we're going to do that for this side. Let me pin it so when I move it, it doesn't come off. This side and then the other side. So on all the sides and the front and the back. You got to do it in the front and the back. And I don't know why I keep putting my measuring tape away because I need it still. I'm going 4 inches. Right there. I should probably grab my pocket so I have it ready. Facing down. Right there. Pin. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish pinning these and sewing them on. And then we'll move on to actually sewing our sides of our skirts together. And then we'll be attaching our skirt and we'll be done. All right, so my pockets have been sewn on. So now we're gonna attach our skirt to our skirt front and backs together. So what we're going to do is, if you don't have a pocket, when you put your front and back and front together, right sides together, you're going to go from the top straight all the way down to the bottom at the side seams, at the side raw edges, to create side seams. But when you have a pocket, you're gonna go down and around the pocket and back down. So I'm putting it right sides together, right on top of each other, like so. And since I have pockets, I'm gonna have my pockets right here. So they're gonna go, the pockets are gonna go right on top of each other. So that one pocket is out right there, and then the other pocket right on top of it. And we're gonna go down from the top, around the pocket, all the way down the side. And that is how we're going to sew our skirt front and back together. All the way down to the bottom. I added a little bit of length because sometimes I like to wear my skirts with like wedge heels kind of, and I really don't like it when my skirt is not long enough. So I had we had on the pattern piece, it tells you if you're wearing heels to add the length. You know, it tells you what height it's sewn to. Sorry, my iron turned off. What height it is made for, drafted for. But then if you want to add high heels, then you want to add a little bit of height to it. So I added a little bit to it so that it gives me enough length that I could wear high heels with it, and I won't be like short dress, you know. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew all the way down that side and the other side, and then we'll come back to attach it to our bodice and hem. I wanted to show you how I sew around my pocket, because I know that sometimes can be a little bit of a tricky situation to come around that cornering and sew around the pocket. Some people like to do that part on the sewing machine because they don't want to cut any of this with their serger knife. Some people will disengage their serger knife, but my knife is kind of hard to disengage. So this is what I do because I'm using knit fabric. Now you don't have to do it this way, but this is just the way that I found that it works best for me. And I haven't really had any issues with it turning out right. So what I do is I'm gonna go straight up until that pocket corner where the rounded edge is. And then I'm gonna stretch it down like so. So make that like a straight shot right there as I'm coming around this pocket. Now, as I go around the pocket, I really don't even worry about my seam allowance because it's a pocket that's going to be on the inside. So if my pocket is not perfectly rounded, or if one pocket is bigger than the other one, it really doesn't matter to me because it's on the inside. So then I go around my pocket again when I get to this edge right here, where I'm going to continue to go straight on my fabric. I'm going to, instead of going in and over, which will sometimes cause my knife to cut my fabric, I will pull it straight and manipulate it so it goes straight through. And so now I have a straight line on my pocket instead of having a cut piece on my pocket. So we're going to keep going all the way down to the bottom of my skirt now. All right, so now that my side seam is all the way done, we want to make sure that you sewed it on all the way. So make sure you check those side seams and make sure that they are right. You don't have any gaps, any holes, nothing like that. So my skirt is basted together. And what I am going to do now is turn it right side out again. I mean, not basted together, sewn together. All right. And you will notice that your skirt is a little bit wider than your bodice once I bring my bodice over. I'm gonna make sure my skirt is nice and lined up. Okay, so here's my bodice. So my skirt is just a tiny bit wider than my bodice. So we're gonna go ahead and gather our skirt enough that is the width of our bodice. So how I do that is I just do one on my sewing machine. I do a long straight stitch, basting stitch, and then I pull it together. But first I want to find my front and my back. That way when I go to attach it, I know I'm attaching it to the right areas. I'm just notching, I'm meeting those side seams together, and I'm going over to the front and the back so that I have it. And I'm going to do the same for the bodice. Now I already have a back seam for my front, so really I could just use that as a guide for my front, or I can just, since it's not that hard, meet those two side seams and go to the back, the front, because I already have my back seam. So I'm going to go ahead and use my sewing machine with a long stitch to do the gathering stitch. And I will do on my sewing machine, if I hold my tension a tiny bit, it will kind of sort of gather for me already, and it makes it a little bit easier. Remember, when you get to the front where the overlap is, remember that has to stay overlapped, so make sure you go over it and stays overlapped. When I get to the part where I started, I kind of go a little bit after that so that I could, so that my thread, if my thread kind of pulls out a little bit, it still doesn't mess up my gathers. All right, so now I've got my skirt sort of gathered to the width of my bodice. I need to gather a tiny bit more right here, and I'm going to tie those where I started and where I ended, tie it off just a tiny bit so it doesn't come undone, and then it widens out. And now I'm going to go ahead and even my gathers out, because I want to make sure that they're nice and even, and it's not more gathered on one end or the back or the front. And that is why I wanted to quarter before I gathered it, because now I know, hey, this is my middle, this is my front, this is how much I want my front to be gathered, this is how much I want one side to be gathered, and this is how much I want the other side to be gathered, and it's easier to manipulate that way. So my front has got good gathers, my back I need to kind of even out because I feel like it's got more gathers on one side than the other. There we go. Even those gathers out. I don't want them to be all stuck on one side and then not enough on the other. There we go. I'm gonna undo that tie right there. I tied it too prematurely and it messed up my gathers a little bit. They were too tight on one side. Okay, now I'm gonna fix them up. There we go. There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so now if you're scared about gathers, sometimes what I'll do is when I attach my bodice to my skirt, I will attach it with a zigzag stitch just to make sure that it's even, and then I'll come back. Now I flip my bodice inside out because I'm going to fit my skirt into my bodice. Now the right side of my bodice to the right side of my skirt, and then the right side of my bodice is touching the right side of my skirt, and I'm going to match that first notch for the front with that notch I have on the front of my skirt. I'm going to do the same to my side, that side seam. And then my other side seam. And then the back. And after I pin those 4 areas, I'm going to add more pins to the whole thing to make sure my gathers are even and everything. And I will sew this on with my gathers face up. So even though my gathers are on the inside, I'm still gonna sew it this way so that way I can see my gathers as I'm sewing them. So that way I got them correctly. It's not a whole lot of gathering, so it's kind of easy to see if you need to move them over a little bit, because like I said, it's not a whole lot of gathers. And honestly, sometimes I find it easier when it is more gathers than not, but this is not too bad because it's just a few. So it's pretty good. So I'm gonna finish pinning all the way around, and then I'm gonna go back in with my serger and sew it together. If you are a little bit worried and you wanna make sure that your gathers are nice and even, like I said, sometimes I'll go in with a big zigzag stitch, like a wider zigzag stitch, and try it on after I sew it. And if I like the way the gathers look, then I'll go back with my serger and serge them on and remove the zigzag stitch with my seam ripper. That's why I make the zigzag stitch bigger, so it'll be easier to remove. All right, let's go ahead and sew it on and we'll be back. All right, now my skirt has been sewn to my bodice. I want to make sure I cut all my areas, and now I can pull both of those basting stitches, the ones that I did for the skirt and the one that I did for the bodice, for the gathering of the skirt and the gathering for the overlap of the skirt and the gathering of the stitches. So I'll have 2 basting stitches to pull out. Make sure they come out. Sometimes they're easier than others. I should probably use my seam ripper to do it. And our dress is basically done. All we gotta do now is hem our sleeves and our bottom. And we're hemming at 1/2 inch allowance for our sleeves and our bottom. So we'll fold it 1/2 inch. And then you can use your sewing machine with a zigzag stitch or a double needle, or your cover stitch, which is what I will be doing. But I'm gonna go ahead and show you real quickly how to do your sash, and then we'll be done. Okay, so your sash, you'll have 2 pieces, and you will put them right sides together, and you will sew that together to become it one whole piece. My fabric was long enough that I could do one whole piece with the whole thing, so I just went ahead and did that. But you can do 2 pieces, it's up to you. Then we're gonna meet them right sides together, and we're gonna sew, start up and over, and go all the way down, leaving a 1 to 2 inch gap where we're gonna turn it around. But we're gonna go all the way down and close the gap at the end. I am not even pinning because I am using double brush poly, and it kind of sticks together. So sometimes I don't even pin it. I'm leaving that gap. Somebody's alarm is going off. I'm leaving that gap open. And then I'm going right back 1 inch to 2 inches down from where I left the gap. All right, so it has been sewn together. I'm going back right here where I have my gap. And I'm going to turn it. Turn it one way, and then turn it on the other side. This is one good thing about, so I had to do this with woven, and it takes forever because it's harder. The double brush poly or whatever knit you're using, it's so much easier to do it on because it's soft and it's easy. But with like woven, it's just so hard. You're gonna use whatever tool you have. I don't really have a tool, so I'm just gonna use my pen and go back to where I left that gap. Where did I leave that gap? I can't even find my own gap. Go back to where the gap is, if you find it. Okay, and then I'm gonna feed it through and just go in and make sure those edges come out nice and sharp before you sew it together. Then you're gonna go in where you left that gap and you're just gonna top stitch it closed. That's all you're doing. And our sash is done. And then there is an option of loops. If you wanna put the loops on. I wasn't planning on putting the loops on, but I might change my mind and might want the loops on. Because sometimes I don't like to wear the band. Now I lost my gap again and now my pen is trapped in there forever. Sometimes I don't like to wear my sash and sometimes I do, and I don't like my loops hanging out when I am not wearing a sash. So I might not do the loops, but I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna sew steam right there where my gap is, and I'm gonna go in with a straight stitch and close it, top stitch it. Now I've got my sash. Now, if you want loops, what we're doing is we're gonna grab our loop little stencil thingy, fold it, wrong sides together, then fold the two sides, the two raw edges in. We're basically creating a casing. Two edges in, and then I'm gonna fold it right down the middle. Okay, and now I'm gonna sew it closed. And I like to use a pin at the beginning, at the top, so it can help me pull it and guide it as I go. And you can actually do, if you want to do it on both sides, the top stitching on both sides, this side and that side, so that way it's nice and even. I'm gonna fold it in half and cut it in half because you need two loops. But if we do it this way, if you do it one and one, it's too small, so it's kind of harder. It's easier when you do one straight line. And we're gonna go ahead and attach it to the side seams of your dress. You're gonna fold that over 1/4 of an inch down on each side and attach it to the side with a straight stitch to the side of your dress. So you're just gonna top stitch right to the side of your dress, and that's it. Super easy. I might come back and do that later if I try it on and figure my sash keeps falling down and I want it on. But as of right now, this is all, and we are done with our dress. Go ahead and hem it, and that is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you had a good time. Let me know if you have any questions. Please comment, like, share. Come over to our Facebook and Instagram page and share with us your make. We love to see it. We want you to see what everybody else is making. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.